Good morning. This is the Wednesday, February 26, 2025 Jupyter Accessibility and Frontends meeting. My name is Eric Gentry. It looks like we've got a couple of items on the agenda here. Welcome to any newcomers. We're glad to have you. I think we might have one or two newcomers potentially, so please feel free to jump in and participate in whatever way you feel comfortable. We are all happy to help and support. So with that, I'll start with the first person on the agenda, which is Mike. You want to take it away?
Thank you. So first announcement, JupyterLab 4.4 Beta 0 is out. It was actually released last week, but last week we had a community meeting instead. So during that meeting, I did a very quick tour of some of the new features that are being included, which brings me to the next point. Besides trying to add a couple of the open pull requests in, the thing which is blocking us from releasing beta 1, I think, is writing release notes. I don't know if anything on the call feels comfortable trying to take a first pass on it. I think I've written like user-facing changelog for a number of past point releases now, so I'm still happy to do that, but if anyone else would like to give it a try and I can come back and help with review, that would be nice too. Feel free to message me or send a message in the group chat during this meeting if you'd like to work on it. Now, speaking of the pull requests, which we probably want to merge into 4.4 before another beta is released, there is one from Jeremy about renaming some plugins, and we had a little bit of back and forth on a previous pull request where I think, agreed to rename translator, even though I wasn't so sure if we should do that because the RISE extension would be broken, but as Jeremy rightly pointed out, it will be only broken after upgrading the resolutions in the log file of that extension. So this shouldn't affect users when we release 4.4, but it will add a little bit of additional task for the maintainers, which is probably one of us, to rename this plugin when they do upgrade. Now, this new pull request proposes to fix a couple of inconsistencies. One of them is like pretty obvious. Others is just like missing /extension in the name of the plugin, so that all of the plugins have consistent naming, and that could have a breaking change for users and for extension developers if they were using disabled extension stanza. So that could be put in package.json, or that could be used in configuration for your custom deployment. So before I review that pull request, I just wanted to get that out and see if anyone is using any of these plugins in disabled extension stanza, and if that would be a breaking change for them, or if is everyone mostly happy with the proposed renaming. The affected plugins would be application extension, MIME document, LSP, code extractor manager, and workspaces commands. And Jeremy, please correct me if I mischaracterized that or missed something.
Yeah, it's mostly so. So we have consistent naming going forward, because this PR also comes with a test, like a Galata test, to make sure that if we add new plugins later, they follow the same pattern.
Can we shim? Can we sort of shim the old names?
Um, I'm not
in
sure.
order to avoid breaking things.
Yeah, but like we said, yeah, like Mike said, so it's breaking. So it's a little bit different than the traditional breaking changes, like when it comes to API surface, because here it's more about the name of a plugin, but for sure it could break some configuration files, typically the page config.
No, like so I think it is breaking in the sense that if you want to change functionality in an extension, you need to use disabled extensions and provide your own plugin which registers this token that you want to substitute. And I initially thought, yeah, could we just rename them in the background or add another plugin? So another plugin would not work because they would compete with each other and it would be pretty annoying. But maybe if the disabled extensions is the only, well, there is also the third extensions. But I
Yeah,
guess this is in like a single place where we can update them easily.
maybe there could be a mapping indeed,
Yeah,
like from the old name to the new name, and if we
and
find
the
like someone is using
deprecation
the,
warning.
we could try to do this. Yeah, yeah. I
Would
think
that,
that
I
would
guess,
work.
would that be in the plugin loader, something like that? Is that what you're thinking?
Somewhere, yeah,
Yeah,
somewhere around that place. Yeah.
that sounds like a good idea. And I didn't catch this maybe, but is this is just for this is just for plugins in core plugins, right? In the lab repo. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
cool. Thanks.
You can violate the naming conventions whichever way you like, but
Yeah, no, I'm just
certain
thinking of backwards compatibility and breaking changes is all I'm thinking about there.
no, it doesn't extend to extensions. Okay, so my last point is about Windows notebooks and renderers. So for context, there is a problem with a couple of problems with Windows notebooks with the full windowing. So this is when user scrolls the viewport um, and some cells become no longer visible. They are no longer rendered. And we are using some optimizations to remove them from the layout, which we thought is pretty safe because it shouldn't trigger side effects. And when we were testing that, and even we had the full windowing mode implemented for a while before we switched it on as a default. With time, people started reporting various issues. The most annoying for users are the issues related to scrolling, and JupyterLab Mist is one of the affected plugins because it doesn't have a very good way to render the markdown that it needs. So instead, it's trying to kind of over render on top of what we do and swap the renderers and uses asynchronous operations. And that leads to it to like collapsing the height of the cell and then resizing back. And I mentioned that before, that maybe this renderer, like maybe we should try to stabilize the height of the cells when using full windowing. But another interesting case is that if you have a definition for a pattern in SVG, and if you put it in one cell and scroll away, the other SVG images in your notebook no longer have that pattern, which is like a similar if you outputted a style declaration if in one cell and try to use this CSS style in another cell and scrolled away as if it was getting removed, but it's not the case with styles. Like we are not removing them from the DOM. They are still there because we knew about this issue, so we are preventing that issue. It turns out that there is, I think, 12 years old bug in both Chromium and Firefox, which means that this they do not comply with the SVG HTML spec, and they are hiding these patterns. They're like ignoring them if they are hidden, even if they are in the DOM. So there's a couple of issues like that, and I've raised a proposal to potentially add a way for renderers to tell us if we can optimize out any given cell when it is out of viewport. And that could potentially enable even better optimization, because right now we are just using display none, which is removing the cell from the layout. But if a renderer doesn't care, like it doesn't have any styles, it doesn't contribute any JavaScript, we could remove it from the DOM altogether. But on the other hand, if the renderer is outputting things like SVG declaration, styles, or it's just resizing a lot when it is rendering its output, then maybe we shouldn't even use display none, because that's not safe, and we should use something else. I'm describing that in a lot more detail in the issue that I've linked. I just wanted to get a kind of some initial feedback thoughts, especially on naming. I'm very much not convinced how to name this option. But if you do have any thoughts on that, please do share. The alternative is that we do not add this new optional property in renderers, but instead we try to guess and monitor, like, is this renderer that does its node include script, does it node include style, does it node include SVG definitions, and we could use resize observer to see if it's resizing drastically. And I have a pull request which attempts to do that. But going forward, I think being able for the render to tell what we can do might be more useful. That's it from me.
All right, anybody have any feedback for this? As always, thanks for your work, Mike. Sylvain.
Yeah, I got distracted by something in the middle, but there is something that we started doing at some point early in this work, which is to try to have better heuristics for the actual heights. And there are many cases for which we could potentially have the exact number by actually computing based on the CSS variables. And for everything that is text output and specifically and based on the for the input as well, you would know based on the CSS rules that we have what is the height, and it's something for which we can make unit tests, and we could get a lot closer to reality early on, right? I don't know whether it's possible to exactly have an estimate of the height of rendered Markdown even without images, like purely rendered, without doing the rendering.
Yeah, so we are rendering that after some time, and I worked on some of it. So for example, this pull request fixed the logic. So I'm not super happy about the logic for windowing mode and how the size estimation is invalidated and how it's tracked, etc. But slowly we are making progress and we are getting there. So the pull request that I've linked made like a one step there by not discarding these heuristics every time you add a new cell, etc. And this draft pull request from a new contributor is trying to address one of the issues that we currently were only attempting to compute heuristics for some kind of outputs, not others, and it really wasn't used very often, or almost at all. It was only used for simple text plain.
Mhm.
So if someone could help, and I'm not sure what is blocking this PR, probably, yeah, someone just needs to help push it over the finish line, because I think after a couple rounds of review, it's almost ready, but I haven't looked at it before. So if someone could help, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thanks. Oh, that's back from August. It's not a new one.
We had a lot of pull requests between between then and now, because partially because of folks trying to contribute ahead of Google Summer of Codes, which is not happening. But
Yeah.
yeah, there were lots of new contributors opening pull requests, and I really appreciate that. I tried to review each and every one of those, but it was a journey.
All right. It looks like Jeremy is up next.
Yeah, let me check. Yeah, so we also have releases for Notebook, the first beta based on the JupyterLab 7.4, 4.4 beta. So 7.4.0 beta 0 for Notebook. For JupyterLab as well, it's based on the 2 beta releases for Lab and Notebook. And the 2 other points are more about the meta stuff, let's say. So I sent an email last week or 2 weeks ago about starting the new SSC nomination round for this year, because the last one was a year ago. And for now, the nomination period is open until March 7th, anywhere on Earth. So it's still plenty of time if you would like to nominate yourself, nominate someone from the council to be the representative for the Jupyter Frontends. Feel free.
What are the commitments for that?
They are listed in the I think in the form. By the way, if you haven't received the form, let me know. But normally everybody in the council should have received the email. So to like a short summary of the commitments is being able to follow the discussions happening in the SSC group, voting on JEPs. Those are the 2 main ones, and representing the Jupyter sub-project that you are belonging to. And you can be actually a SSC of multiple sub-projects. There is no limit to the number of sub-projects you can represent. So if you're already part of another group, then you can also become SSC for this one. Although I guess for team now, it's always nice to have like as many different people as possible, of course. But yeah.
Thanks.
And let's see. So yeah, after this nomination period, there will be a voting period. And I also thought that we don't have like a checklist somewhere for doing these things every year. So I had an issue on the council private repo, but I will see if I can write something up. So next time it will be a bit easier to just go through like in a mechanical way for all of this. Yeah, and the second point is about an issue and also a topic on Zulip about the Jupyter Foundation funding. So it will be like So the issue is more about gathering IDs, needs from Jupyter projects to check what the potential funding from the Linux Foundation, from the Jupyter Foundation, could be used for. So there is already a few comments on these issues. I haven't followed the conversation entirely, but I thought it would still be interesting to bring it up here. If that's something you would like to discuss during this call right now, I could exchange IDs, or if you would like to just follow along on the issues or suggest like ideas for how such funding could be used for the Jupyter Frontends, for example. Yeah. And Darren has, you want to talk about this?
I just want to give a little bit of context. Thanks for raising this point. So we have a group of paying members to the Jupyter Foundation, and their subscriptions help are basically are the funding model for the Linux Foundation, which we've joined. And so we're the budget is something we sort of predicted last year. We hoped, right, we would have on the order of $1 million budget the first year. We don't know what will happen like in coming years because it's a subscription model. And out of that, we want to try to get as much to the community as quickly as we can, or rather start getting funds to the community as quickly as we can. And then as new subscriptions are added or as new needs arise or whatever, we can consider different ways of meeting the project's needs. We currently don't have enough money to hire people. You can imagine like the foundation hires 4 people that are like dedicated staff to do stuff. We don't have that kind of money. We do have the kind of money that can support, you know, X number of hours contracts per sub project to do certain work, certain GitHub issues with certain labels, or, you know, those sorts of things. Or a company coming forward and saying, you know, we have this bid that we want to make for this kind of support, and if that gets some support from the sub projects, cool. Or the real moment I think where we'll launch this probably is in a few weeks. There's the Linux Foundation Member Summit where the EC and the members of the Jupyter Foundation Governing Board will actually get to meet in person. And before then, we're trying to gather both like historic feedback that we've had, because we've had a community building report with lots of interviews that was done before, and interviews with the SSC reps from then. We have an open issue now that Jeremy just mentioned. We're having these conversations in individual sub-project calls, but I think we want to show up with, okay, here's an initial budget for you guys to vote on, and let's start dispersing some of this. It might be like a shortened call for proposal procedure where we vote on it. It might be something different than that, where like individuals, like basically we help write things for the individual sub-projects to just vote on, and if those votes pass, you know, we hand that off. Or I don't exactly know what that piece of it looks like. And this week and next week, I think we're really trying to nail down a minimal process for doing this. But just so you know, like we want to be able to come to like actual answers when we meet in person. Now, that's not like a hard commitment that we're going to make a choice there, but that is like our aspiration. That's what we're hoping to do.
Anybody have any other thoughts here?
I have a lot of thoughts and started writing a comment. Just don't know how to best put it, whether I should place a separate comment for each idea or a very long comment that no one is going to read except for the person asking about it. But one of my thoughts is for Jupyter Frontends, potentially one of the better ways to use money could be actually not using it on Jupyter Frontends, but on making sure that we can count on the other components of Jupyter being maintained and accepting changes. So an issue that I had a couple of times now with Jupyter Core or Jupyter Server, Jupyter Client, is that there's either no one to review pull requests, or that there is a very friendly team of maintainers who will point out 10 ways that proposed change can break backwards compatibility, or there could be edge cases, but they are very apprehensive of merging any changes because there is no one to deal with consequences of things which are done with best effort and best intention. But yeah, there are definitely many ways, and I think I would appreciate if many folks try to put in a comment on what they think would be best.
Is this specific to packages that are in just one sub-project? Is that sub-project short-staffed, or is it like across the board? You mentioned Jupyter Client, you mentioned Jupyter Server.
So these are already two different ones.
Yeah.
For some of these, I actually not sure where they belong, like NBDime and NBConvert. These are like fluid, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so let's see. Jupyter Client is part of Foundations and Standards. NBDime is an official sub-project without representation, which is like very difficult to think about. So I think then the idea is some sort of like custodial maintenance of last resort. So for the packages that aren't like actively being worked on, they still need some number of presumably hours a month or something like that in terms of custodial support of PRs coming in, issues that have been raised, or just, you know, mechanical releases that need to be made, maybe for patches of security things or whatever. Fair enough. Okay. Yeah.
And just, I want to read out Nick's comment, aka Steve was doing it. Yes, that's it.
Sorry, this is very loud. I need to. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff that you're seeing down in NBDime, you know, special case, but it's like those are things that other people depend on, right? Things like Jupyter Core, things like NB Convert, you know, those NB format, those are dependencies now that they are the public API of Jupyter for everybody that ain't Jupyter. And so it should require something of an act of Congress in order to, you know, really make changes in those places, because that is the public thing. Like there's very few times that those things would not be JEP level concerns. Maybe NB Convert, you know, where you put some tech templates, whatever. Maybe that's not such a big deal. But yeah, now there isn't a group that can make that decision, because every time that you touch that, it can break everything. And they haven't broken much, is kind of the thing, right? So, you know, a lot of stuff keeps working, and when things do break because we change something, we try and learn from that. So I don't know. I don't have anything constructive particularly to add to that, but just some of the context on those guys.
Well, look, I mean, you know, even if it's the case that the person who ends up being tasked with some of this support isn't the person who ultimately has to make a decision about whether the safety of something is such that we can publish it, that person can still follow up with whoever can give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Like minimize the work that that critical person needs to do the rest, but at least be on the case. But yeah, I mean, sometimes there's going to be something like Jupyter Client, which everything sits on top of, and has improvements that can be made to it. And that is one of the few things that might have to be voted on, as you say, by an act of Congress. But I think not all things are going to fall into that trap.
There are a lot of things that I could add to here. So like we could definitely use someone, I think, to kind of improve the CI and build processes, make the developer experience better, make onboarding easier, and kind of maybe improve or add APIs in the lab APIs to make common tasks easier, especially for people who are not like us, professional software engineers. Someone to do technical writing, to do high level design docs, and to do some of the mountains of work there, etc. But I'm going to try to write up an issue for that too, or add comments. All right, looks like Rosio's next.
Hi everyone. I just had a few questions. My first question was I was wondering if there was anybody on this call that could help. I did send an email to the Jupyter Media Strategy Google group, but I'm not really sure who's a part of it. I think there were. Yeah, I was just wondering if I was trying to get it uploaded to YouTube because there were some people requesting as well. So, yeah, if there's anyone here that could help out with that, it would be great.
Unfortunately, I can help. And I'm saying unfortunately because I know what needs to be done to get the recording, which is opening a ticket on Jira. Yeah.
Oh.
So jokes aside, yeah, I guess what we need here, so maybe it would be worth having someone from the JMS also, added to the meeting that we have now on this Linux Foundation dashboard. Because once they have an account there, they can open support tickets.
Are you allowed to open a ticket that says, with subtasks that says meetings for month of January, this?
Yeah, I opened already, I think, 3 or 4 tickets to get the recordings from the past weeks. They were super responsive, so that's the good point, but it's quite tedious. But unfortunately, there is no other way for now to get the recording. Or maybe someone with admin access to these meetings on the Linux Foundation dashboard, maybe they can do it more easily. But for us, like we are just a member of the meeting, then we have to go do it this way. So I can do it if you want to get the recording. But in the long run, I guess it would be nice also to have someone from the JMS able to do that as well, because it will be maybe faster to get the recordings.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I'm not sure I can be the person to open up the Jira ticket because I'm not on, like, I don't have access, I believe. Is that so?
Yeah. Do you have a Linux? What's it called? Is it LFX? I think.
Yeah. So you can go to openprofile.dev and you can make an account. And I don't know, I think you say which project you're associated with when you create the account, but once you have an account, you should be able to create issues.
Okay.
Yeah, and we had an email thread about this recently to add new hosts, well, to add new people to that meeting so they can grab the host key for the Jupyter Frontends call. If you are interested, I can put you in the loop. And then I think it's someone from, it's just the 2 or 3 people who can add you at the moment. But if you are fine being added to that meeting, then you should then have access to that open profile page.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I think I would be happy to get added and submit the issue.
So like manually requesting every recording just doesn't seem like an optimal workflow. I remember there was a talk that there are some alternative options like having a separate Zoom room for the Jupyter project or something. So should we maybe explore those?
So I think the way we were using Zoom before, I'm not sure whether there was some special type of account that NumFocus had or whether we were not following the account's rules. Because effectively we had one login and we were sharing credentials. And I don't think Zoom wants that MO. I think it wants a different way of doing things. But the reason it worked was because effectively one person's account was making all of those meetings and they could log into their Zoom dashboard and get it. Now it'd be nice if we could just use Zoom directly without the LFX intermediary. And I think there must be underlying that some way, but we don't have direct access to that. And the question has been whether this is tedious enough that we should, go get a Zoom account, or should we just use this with its rough edges? And perhaps if every week 2 sub-projects are requesting video downloads, they will say, oh, we should automate this so that humans aren't involved. But yeah, I mean, there's trade-offs basically. I think Jason spent some time researching all of the cases, and I think Jeremy was his guinea pig for a bunch of that. So
we ruled out a service account for this.
I think so because of bad practices when it comes to security, that they are not super,
Yeah.
happy about having shared credentials. So I
Makes
prefer to
sense.
have like one person behind like one email address.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure that like we can talk about it like that Jupyter Media strategy responsibility should be opening the tickets for all projects for every Zoom meeting to get a recording. Maybe more of like providing a way to upload to YouTube. Yeah.
And it seems like community building group would be better tasked for the community meetings. I don't know.
yeah, that's a good point.
I was actually I was actually not aware there was a community building group until just recently. So I will take a look at who I can reach out to for that, or their Google Google group email.
All right. I think Rosia, you have some additional points too, right?
Yes. I do have two questions. I see Mike already added some comments. So yeah, we were just this came up in the triage meeting. I was just wondering if there's like any particular distinction between the 2 tags there or 2 labels, the tag documentation, and like whether maybe we can consolidate those into one if that's okay. I took a look around. I didn't see any additional tags, but I just wanted to quickly mention that in case that might be something that we can do. Okay, I see Mike has added like removing opting to remove tag documentation. Yeah, I think most of those issues or PRs were or I think the issues I didn't check the PRs. I can double check that they were also tagged with just the documentation label.
So I'm just untagging everything that has tag
Oh, okay.
documentation, and we'll remove that label so that it is no longer confusing people unless someone has a very strong suggestion to not do that, very strong reason not to do that. But given that our practice has been to use the documentation label, and this is what the CI forces on PRs. So there is enforce label workflow, and it uses documentation, not tag documentation. So I think this would be redundant. Maybe later we can decide to switch the names if we want to keep using the prefix, and then
Do we use the prefix elsewhere?
yes, we use the prefix for packages and for status as well. But all of that was done before GitHub even introduced like distinction between bugs and like issue type, which was only introduced recently. So maybe we could also start using issue types and then remove the prefixes altogether. And that's probably a discussion for another time.
All right, Rosie, I think you have one last one. We're approaching the time and we still have one other person, so we should try to keep it brief.
Yeah, so just quickly, my last question was around kind of LLM comments. My question is just, should I be doing anything if I see those in like things like triage? I am pointing out a specific comment that I saw yesterday on a notebook issue. It seems to be just like the output of some various rounds with an LLM chat bot. Like, so yeah, I didn't do anything then. I'm just kind of wanting to check in. I know this conversation has happened about other things like open PRs and things, but I wanted to double check that if there's something I should be doing with issue comments. And that. Yeah, it is in Spanish, but it's I think it's so it's like a tried different things, copied other things, and it seems to be like a back and forth conversation between or from some LLM.
I don't think we have any like official policy about this, but I would say that generally like any comments that are meaningful, that are not meaningful and are spammy should be deleted, right? So we could probably apply the same approach to the AI comments, like this one. Definitely not meaningful.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There is a topic on Zolip about spam pull requests and spam issues on GitHub. I'm not sure where exactly, but if you search Zolip, you will find that. And we had a precedent of both issues with malicious links being posted, especially on repositories with large audience and reach, and attempts to create pull requests using LLMs. Now, when I think there are two potential issues. One is that someone is just spamming. One is that someone is actively trying to spread malicious or inappropriate content. And third is that someone is building up reputation for an account in order to be able to do something malicious in the future. So if there is any inauthentic activity and unrelated, I would probably not only delete things, but after trying to verify that this is not a real person, but a bot account, I have tried to report that to GitHub. There is a form for reporting this, just so that
I want to do a time
novelty.
check here. Mike, can you capture some of that in the notes? Maybe I want to get to this last person here. So that's Jan.
Hey, hi. Thanks a lot. So this is regarding a documentation PR that I raised a few weeks ago actually, and recently post rebasing with the latest change. The CI, one of the steps in CI started failing, and why am I not able to paste this? Okay. So for a small one file change, that build API docs steps changed a set of 30 plus, 22 files with just a one-liner change in all the files. And there are some comments also after. I just want to make sure if someone who has worked on this before can take a look and say if these are safe changes that we can go proceed with, or if there is something more that we should look into to ensure we are breaking anything.
You threw a link in the chat.
This is Jupyter server. Yes, that's correct.
So I think Jupyter server has another meeting on Thursdays. Half an hour before this, or an hour before.
Yeah, I guess it's tomorrow evening my time. I can join that call and raise it there as well. But because I believe this is a documentation, I just thought to raise it here. But I can raise in that form as well.
Right. I think I'm going to
We
end the
didn't see.
think I'll end the recording so we can do a short off the record session. Everybody brace yourselves.